They left out the major part of my father's speech when he said the words peacefully. You know, they don't like to include those kind of things because the facts tend to elude the Democrats. And when you have a mainstream media complex that's willing to carry their water for them, Sean, they will allow them to get away with it. They will pretend as though it didn't exist, even though it's literally part of the same sentence. You have seen this play out yourself in real life. Yeah. They do it all the time. It doesn't matter, right? Today, you heard the impeachment managers. Breitbart did a great article on it. They have a real hard time with the words that my father used when he said, "We got to fight like hell for America." Yeah. The only problem is impeachment manager Jamie Raskin has numerous tweets out there saying exactly that, fight like hell. So does, flatulent, Eric Swalwell. He has that out there, exactly the same thing. So does, serial, outrage individual Ted Lieu. Fight like hell. If they wanted to impeach every member of Congress who ever used the word fight like hell in a stump speech, there would be no one left in D.C., which may be a great start, but I have a feeling they're only going to prosecute it one way.
Yeah, it's a dangerous slope to go down for that to be your standard. The House impeachment managers just about an hour ago showed this violent surveillance footage that is new, showing Capitol rioters, some of their actions. But, Don, they keep showing the actions of the mob, which we have all said were horrific and not okay. But they're not making the case of how this directly ties back to your father. Does that bother you?
Well, they're not making that case because it doesn't. Right? By that logic, we would take the last 10 months and you would take the $1 billion worth of damage in looting, in rioting, in arson, in murder that took place across the country with the BLM riots and the Antifa riots, and you have the words of Kamala Harris, you have the actions of their campaigns bailing out criminals, you have the words of Maxine Waters. You'll get up in their face, Nancy Pelosi, everyone. Again, they only want to have sort of selective memory as it relates to these things. We've all denounced what happened on January 6th. No one hasn't, okay? That doesn't mean that then by their rules that they would be absolved of 10 months of January 6th that happened across the entire country, right? Federal buildings were stormed. You saw that during, I guess it was during the Ginsburg stuff. You had stuff that happened during Kavanaugh. You had everything else, all insurrected by the Democrats and by their rhetoric on TV, yet that doesn't seem to be a problem. And I'm not saying it should be, frankly. I don't think that every time that someone says something, we should be able to tie back and say we got to blame the person saying it. But why is it that the Democrats are allowing that? Why is it that they're pushing it? Why is the media okay with having that singular standard for one individual and a different standard for everyone else? It's ridiculous.
It is. It's weird. So when you watch these other media channels, which I hope people don't, you hear the anchors say, Republicans engage in whataboutism. They keep talking about this. And they're right. Because to your point, Don, the Democrats say the same thing. They face no consequences. They face no repercussions. And yet they go, but when Donald Trump says something, it's totally different because that must have incited somebody. When they did it, well, we can't talk about that because that's out of bounds.
Yeah, well, what was it last week? There was that article where someone jokingly put up a tweet that was like verbatim. It was like Andrew Cuomo or Maxine Waters verbatim, but they said it came from a Republican. Now, all of a sudden, there was outrage. But when it was the Democrat saying it weeks before, it wasn't. Once they found out, it was actually a verbatim quote of the other side. They just wanted to see if it was going to be a proportional reaction. Of course, we understood what the answer was going to be. All of a sudden, it wasn't an issue anymore. That's the insanity that we're dealing with. We're not on a level playing field. We're not talking about fairness. And frankly, if we want to talk about everything, you have 44 Republicans already saying that this is an unconstitutional hearing. That means it's dead on arrival. And yet in the midst of a pandemic, Sean, in the middle of a pandemic where they're saying hundreds of thousands of people are dying and they're on TV, this is their focus because each one of them wants a little bit of airtime. They get a little airtime. They'll make a clip of that and they'll send it to their email list, and then they'll try to get donations based on it. This is not about impeaching Donald Trump. It's about preventing him from running ever again. That it is about, because they want to make sure that no one will ever challenge their elitism and their